Imagine being on the brink of rewriting every record in your sport, only to be confronted by a diagnosis that could end not just your career, but your very life. In early 1993, Mario Lemieux faced exactly that scenario. The Pittsburgh Penguins star center, already one of the greatest talents the NHL had ever seen, suddenly found himself in a battle far more frightening than any on-ice rivalry. And yet, within months, he went from the chemotherapy room straight back to the rink, chasing down a scoring title he was on, paced to dominate before cancer dealt its cruel interruption. Today, we're diving deep into the remarkable journey of Mario Lemieux, exploring how he rose from a humble childhood in Montreal to become a hockey icon, how he overcame a potentially life-threatening illness, and why his story resonates as one of the most awe-inspiring feats in sports history. Let's rewind to the 1980s. Canada, the unofficial cradle of hockey talent, had already given the NHL legends like Gordie Howe, Bobby Orr, and Wayne Gretzky. But around the neighborhood of Ville-et-Marne in Montreal, a towering teenager named Mario Lemieux was turning heads. Even in youth leagues, he showed the sort of skill that made people think, is this kid the next Gretzky? At 6'4" with a near magical scoring touch, Lemieux was more like a freight train, weaving through traffic with ballet-like grace. By 1984, the Pittsburgh Penguins, mired in a losing culture and struggling to fill seats, pinned their future on him by selecting him first overall in the NHL draft. And from the moment he put on the Penguins jersey, he proved he was something special. In his very first shift in his very first NHL game, he stole the puck from Hall of Famer Ray Bourque and scored on his first shot. That was Mario Lemieux in a nutshell. Big moments, immediate impact, and the kind of effortless brilliance that made even top defensemen look helpless. Though comparisons to Wayne Gretzky were inevitable, Lemieux quickly forged his own identity. Gretzky's strength lay in reading the ice like a chessboard grandmaster, orchestrating plays before anyone else anticipated them. Lemieux, on the other hand, combined that same supernatural vision with power and a physical edge. The Penguins, historically overshadowed by teams like the Montreal Canadiens and the Toronto Maple Leafs, suddenly had a generational star. Pittsburgh embraced him with open arms, and he dragged the franchise from the basement of the NHL standings into contention, setting scoring marks and dazzling fans with highlight reel goals. By the late 1980s, Lemieux was consistently vying for scoring titles, keeping pace with Gretzky's gaudy numbers. Yet, unlike Gretzky's Edmonton Oilers, Mario's Penguins took a few more years to surround him with a strong supporting cast. Everything changed in 1990 to 91, when Pittsburgh added key pieces like Ron Francis, Jaromir Jagr, and a fiery coach in Badger Bob Johnson. The Penguins stormed through the playoffs, and Lemieux, battling a serious back injury, put on an unforgettable performance in the Stanley Cup Final against the Minnesota North Stars. He scored breathtaking goals, like his iconic swoop around defenders, cutting backhand to forehand, that showcased not just skill, but a flair for the dramatic. Pittsburgh secured its first Stanley Cup in franchise history, and Super Mario lifted the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. A year later, in 1992, they repeated as champions, cementing Lemieux's place as a generational winner, not merely a statistical marvel. At this point, fans and analysts were asking how high could he fly if he ever stayed healthy. But then came 1993, the year Lemieux's trajectory took an abrupt turn. In January, after complaining of fatigue and enduring mysterious pain, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a form of cancer that attacks the lymphatic system. For a 27-year-old athlete at the peak of his career, the news was devastating. Hockey fans around the world held their breath. Was this unstoppable force about to be snatched away from the game forever? Lemieux's reaction was emblematic of the calm and confidence he'd always carried. He announced he would take an indefinite leave for radiation treatments, determined to fight the disease head-on. Pittsburgh reeled in shock, with local and national media holding vigil for updates on his condition. The Penguins star had suddenly become an emblem of human vulnerability, a reminder that even the greatest among us can be struck down by illness. Radiation therapy is no small burden, especially for someone in the middle of a grueling NHL season. It drains the body, saps your energy, and wreaks havoc on muscles and stamina. But the hockey world would soon discover that Lemieux's resilience was second to none. While many might have assumed he'd be done for the season, some even speculated his career might be finished, Lemieux pushed through weeks of treatment, maintaining what strength he could, and then, in a near miraculous twist, he announced he intended to return to the Penguins that very same season. It felt like something out of a Hollywood script. Skeptics warned that coming back too soon could jeopardize his health, but Lemieux's decision spoke volumes about his competitive drive. The moment he returned to the lineup in early March 1993 was like a scene from a blockbuster sports movie. That same day, Lemieux finished his final radiation treatment, then boarded a plane to Philadelphia to play against the Penguins' bitter rival, the Flyers. He took the ice wearing protective padding around his chest, visibly leaner and obviously still recovering. Yet when the puck dropped, he was once again Mario Lemieux, gliding effortlessly, distributing the puck with wizard-like precision. In an extraordinary show of respect, the hostile Philadelphia crowd, famous for booing even Santa Claus, gave him a standing ovation. If you were there or watching on TV, you could feel the electricity crackle in the arena as fans and players alike recognized they were witnessing something far more important than a regular season game. From that night forward, Lemieux went on an absolute tear, collecting points at a staggering pace. At the time of his diagnosis, he trailed Buffalo Sabres star Pat LaFontaine in the scoring race. Overcoming radiation, missed games, and the after effects of cancer treatment, he not only caught LaFontaine, he surpassed him. By season's end, Mario Lemieux had earned another Art Ross trophy as the NHL's leading scorer. It was a comeback for the ages, rivaling stories like Lance Armstrong's Tour de France victories before Armstrong's doping scandal came to light, or Magic Johnson's celebrated return to the NBA. For hockey fans, it was unequivocal proof that Lemieux was more than just an extraordinary athlete. He was an emblem of perseverance. But why did he succeed on such a massive scale? In part, it was thanks to the advanced medical care available to him and the unwavering support of family, teammates, and management. Coach Scotty Bowman, who took over in Pittsburgh, understood that the team needed to adjust its system to Lemieux's evolving physical state. Meanwhile, the Penguins organization rallied around him, scheduling practices that catered to his energy levels, ensuring he had every resource necessary to keep his body in game shape. There was also a psychological aspect. Hockey became a focal point for Lemieux's battle against cancer. He once remarked that the intensity of competing helped distract him from the trials of his illness. So, in a sense, the ice was not just his stage, but his sanctuary. The drama didn't end there. The Penguins, galvanized by Mario's return, embarked on a record-setting winning streak, 17 games in a row, that catapulted them to the top of the standings. Fans dared to believe they might witness a historic three-peat as Stanley Cup champions. Yet, in an ironic twist, the Penguins were upset in the second round of the playoffs by the New York Islanders, led by the clutch performances of guys like David Volek. In one of the biggest shocks of the early 90s, Pittsburgh's dynasty aspirations were snuffed out. The heartbreak was intense, but it didn't overshadow the colossal triumph of Lemieux's personal victory against cancer. Media coverage across North America was unanimous. Even without a third cup, Mario Lemieux had authored the story of the year. But that was merely one chapter in Lemieux's ongoing saga. Injuries, especially his chronic back problems, continued to plague him in the following seasons, leading to periods where he'd step away from the game. Eventually, he announced his first retirement in 1997, leaving as a 10-time All-Star, 6-time Art Ross Trophy winner, 3-time Hart Trophy recipient, and already considered one of hockey's all-time greats. The Hockey Hall of Fame fast-tracked him, waiving the usual waiting period. Typically, that might have been the end of the story, a legendary career capped by adversity, triumph, and well-deserved accolades. Then came another jaw-dropping turn. The Pittsburgh Penguins found themselves in financial dire straits, teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Lemieux, owed millions in deferred salary, struck a deal to become the team's majority owner in a move that defied conventional logic. Suddenly, Super Mario wasn't just a retired star, he was the boss, tasked with saving the very franchise he'd once carried on his back. Under his ownership, the Penguins started to stabilize financially, draft future superstar Sidney Crosby, and return to competitive prominence. And if that weren't cinematic enough, Mario decided, in December 2000, to come out of retirement as a player owner. For the first time in modern sports, the guy giving the pregame pep talk was also signing the checks. He took the ice once more, and in his first game back, recorded an assist on his first shift, eventually finishing the night with 3 points. Even after his battles with cancer and back injuries, his talent still seemed otherworldly. His second stint, while not as long-lasting or physically dominant as his prime years, added yet another dimension to his legend. Younger fans got to see glimpses of why he'd been so revered in the 80s and 90s. And crucially, Lemieux's presence helped shape a new generation of Penguins fans, culminating in Pittsburgh winning another Stanley Cup in 2009, this time with Sidney Crosby wearing the captain's C. Yet throughout all these transformations, one thing never changed. Mario Lemieux remained the symbol of a man who refused to let adversity define him. Lemieux's battle against cancer coincided with a period when medical breakthroughs were giving hope to thousands of patients worldwide. His comeback showcased that an individual could not only survive, but thrive post-diagnosis, inspiring countless people facing similar health struggles. Hockey, in that moment, transcended its usual role as entertainment. When Lemieux stepped onto the ice with radiation burns still fresh, it was a demonstration of sheer human resilience that resonated beyond Pittsburgh, beyond Canada, and into the global sports community. Fans of rival teams acknowledge that, regardless of jersey colors, some stories are bigger than competition. Of course, like any legend, Lemieux's career isn't without its debates and controversies. He clashed at times with NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman over issues like officiating standards and revenue sharing. Some critics felt Lemieux's partial ownership of the Penguins while he was a player presented a conflict of interest, though the NHL approved it. Others argue that his statistics might have eclipsed even Gretzky's had he stayed healthy throughout. What if questions have trailed Lemieux's legacy like a shadow? What if he hadn't had the back problems? What if cancer never struck? Could he have shattered every scoring record in the books? These questions reflect the enduring fascination with the man who was unstoppable on ice but all too human off it. Yet for most hockey fans, and even many casual observers, Mario Lemieux's story rises above the usual sports debates. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and a demonstration of how adversity can refine greatness rather than diminish it. Many saw parallels with athletes like Muhammad Ali, who fought social and health battles alongside his in-ring achievements, or Michael Jordan, who took personal setbacks and turned them into rocket fuel for his championship runs. Lemieux's saga belongs in that pantheon of transformative sports narratives because it shows us how determination, skill, and a never-say-die attitude can vault an athlete into legendary status, even when the biggest opponent is something as terrifying as cancer. And it leaves us pondering bigger questions. Should a single athlete's triumph over disease stand as one of the greatest moments in sports history? Does Lemieux's comeback rank alongside the miracle on ice or Jesse Owens' performance in Berlin? His story certainly has that same cinematic power. Whether or not you rank it as number one, there's no doubt it deserves its place in the conversation. He didn't just beat the odds, he remade our understanding of them. So, as you consider Mario Lemieux's journey, his unstoppable rise, his sudden and life-altering setback, his heroic return, and his reinvention as an owner and icon, think about the sheer magnitude of this tale. Here's a man who began as a lanky French-Canadian kid with a dream, reached the pinnacle of his sport, faced a life-threatening illness, and then soared again, becoming in the process a beacon of inspiration for anyone who's ever been told, "You can't." Years later, the statue outside Pittsburgh's arena, capturing Lemieux splitting two defenders, stands as a symbol not just of hockey greatness, but of living proof that obstacles, no matter how daunting, can be conquered with courage and resolve. Do you think Mario Lemieux's battle with cancer and subsequent comeback is the most inspirational moment hockey, or any sport, has ever witnessed? Or is there another story that tugs at your heartstrings even more? Let us know in the comments. Because whether you're a Penguins fan or not, it's hard to deny the power of a narrative where a champion refuses to accept fate's harshest verdict, instead choosing to lace up his skates and rewrite the record books. That's what Mario Lemieux did. He beat cancer, returned to dominate the NHL, and in doing so, redefined what it means to be a sports hero. And if that isn't the stuff of legend, what is?